Hello again. Today, I bring you to talk about one of the greatest supercars of all time from the 2000s. This special machine occurs to be one of, if not the last proper analog supercar to exist, with an amazing backstory of tracing its roots back to Formula One and Le Mans prototype race cars. This is the Porsche Carrera GT, one of the last most beloved, underrated, and any petrolhead's favorite cars. Not only the best supercars ever made for the 2000s, but rather of all time. And because this is so special and legendary as it gets, almost any supercar that came to the car world after the Carrera GT is nothing like this car with the history that it has, which is why I adore the Porsche Carrera GT so much that words cannot explain. This is anyone's childhood dream car, whether you like supercars or not, and even some non-supercar lovers admire this Carrera GT. Ultimately, this car is YouTuber Doug DeMuro's favorite toy of all time he wishes can afford, and I think that's an honorable thing to say and point out there, because let's be honest, this is one of the best cars that Porsche has ever built for various reasons. With all of that said, let's get into the brief history and engineering of the Porsche Carrera GT by taking you down memory lane. The idea and mission of the Carrera GT all began during the very late 1990s, and now today it's a Porsche classic that's afforded the status and value of the brand's legendary cars. The Carrera has always enjoyed attention from sports and race car enthusiasts from around the globe. Porsche had initially designed it as an F1 prototype with a scrap-built V10 engine to compete in Formula One, but that didn't turn out very well because unknown circumstances. So they changed plans in an attempt to develop a Le Mans prototype for endurance racing called the Porsche 9R3 or LMP 2000 with the V10 engine for the 1999 through 2000 season, a further evolution of the Porsche LMP 198. But the project was cancelled after 2 days of testing for the first car and never followed through in making its first racing debut at Le Mans. However, Porsche decided to reconfigure the prototype again to build a top-tier hypercar just for the road instead. While they kept the project alive by using the 5.5-liter V10 engine from the prototypes in the Carrera GT concept, which was introduced in September 2000 at the Paris Motor Show. The styling cues of the concept car ended up looking like the eventual production model that debuted 3 years later. The concept car had a 5.5-liter V10 that made about 550 brake horsepower, while the actual model made much more horsepower. In addition, the concept model drew the attention of many enthusiasts as possible, and the Carrera GT was everything Porsche hoped it would be: beautiful, powerful, advanced, and Atticus. The production Carrera GT was first introduced in 2003 alongside Porsche's first SUV, the Cayenne, and shook the entire supercar world, and went on sale in the United States in January 2004 and stayed in production until the end of 2006 due to the new airbag regulations in the United States. During its 3-year lifespan, Porsche only produced 1,270 units worldwide and became the absolute collector and a driver's car. As a result, the Carrera GT succeeds the 1980s Porsche 959, which is correct, but chronically succeeds that and the forgettable 911 GT1 street versions. This goes to show that the Carrera GT is traced back to the Le Mans winning 911 GT1 98 and Le Mans prototype race cars. It became the world's first production car with a carbon fiber monocoque made out of carbon fiber polymer. The displacement of the engine, which had been designed for F1 and further developed for Le Mans later, was increased from 5.5 to 5.7 liter naturally aspirated V10, pushing 612 brake horsepower and 435 pound-feet of torque to the rear wheels. Its transmission seized the sequential and was given a 6-speed manual gearbox with an extremely light ceramic clutch. The car will do 0 to 60 mph in just 3.9 seconds and attain a top speed of 205 miles per hour, which is still great by even today's standards. Over 600 horses was a big number for its time, and even today still, because the Carrera GT made more power than some of its rivals. the Lambo Murcielago, Mercedes McLaren SLR, Ford GT, and Celine S7, just to name a few, while the Enzo Ferrari makes 662 horsepower, which beats the Carrera GT by 50 horsepower. One of the most special features of the Carrera GT is its aerodynamic design. Its downforce kits include ground effects that enable stabler driving lines even at high speeds. The supercar's active operated rear wing is activated automatically at 75 miles per hour and can be manually deployed as well, rising 6.3 inches to boost downforce to a maximum of 880 pounds. A state-of-the-art it was. The Carrera GT was built around a 9R3 derived carbon fiber reinforced polymer monocoque chassis produced by ATR Composites. Moreover, the well-known Italian constructor also helped develop the CFRP engine subframe too. In addition to CFRP, ATR, and Porsche used H-400 steel to reinforce the windshield and support their aluminum bumper failings. The crucial difference between the concept showcased at the 2000 Paris Auto Show and the production Carrera GT was that the V10 was put in a 3-point composite subframe. Porsche opted for the subframe because the engine as a bearing unit would transfer noise and vibrations to the driver's cockpit. The Carrera GT was pretty much a Le Mans prototype dressed in a sharp carbon fiber suit for the streets. The fuel tank is placed between the seats and the engine, both safest and optimized for performance without disturbing the weight due to being inserted at the center of gravity, which carefully adapts that the car's curved weight is just 3,042 pounds or 1,380 kilograms. Compared to the concept car, the production car is both wider and longer but also lower. The front fascia has large intakes and dramatic outlet behind the doors. The low-slung body shows that this car was designed for optimal airflow as the inlets provided much cooling for the car's internals while also enhancing the aerodynamics. The engine cover with stainless steel panels serves as huge air vents dispersing the heat from the engine. The Carrera GT is nonetheless aesthetic and iconic from every angle inside and out. Built exclusively as a Targa with a removable hard top. In a way, the Carrera GT is a modern interpretation of the ancestor 550 Spider and the 718 RSK from the earlier years. The wheels have color-coded center locks, blue for the right wheels and red for the left wheels for a purpose, which were used on race cars to emulate the race car look and feel. The center locks were very uncommon on street cars when this car first came out, but nowadays they are becoming far more common on supercars and sports cars. The yellow ceramic composite brakes were lighter than steel discs of the same size. Just as on the outside, the Carrera's GT interior reflects Porsche's stunning past, present, and favorable future. Despite holding onto analog instruments, the interior is quite stunning even to this day, and you can't tell me otherwise. All dressed in high quality leather and with galvanized magnetism panels on the center console, the dashboard, and Y-shaped inserts on the door cards. This cockpit speaks of luxury, but it also traces elements from the street car Porsche 911 996 generation and race car look and feel at the same time. The wooden shift lever pays a tribute to the Porsche 917K race car from 1970 in its position next to the steering wheel. You might find that familiar. The naked steering wheel turns signal stalks, buttons and controls, and the analog gauge cluster is borrowed from the Porsche 911 or Boxster from that era. Exposed carbon weave on the door sills and Kevlar Recaro bucket seats, while the 3 pedals were carved from aluminum. Finally, it features air conditioning, a radio navigation system, but no stability control in the Carrera GT, while that's to be expected in this supercar. With that being said, the Carrera GT is iconic for its use of the race-inspired V10, widely regarded as one of the most dangerous yet most engaging supercars of the 2000s with the ultimate supercar experience. Unlike many of its competitors back in the day, this car isn't dummy-proof. In other words, vulnerable to drive because of its lack of driver assistive tech. While it rewards skillful drivers, it's unforgiving of mistakes. The car has a manual gearbox and no electronic stability control, which means the extreme abilities of the car can only be used if you know what you're doing. But inexperienced or careless drivers can get seriously injured or killed trying to replicate the long experienced level of driving that they're not. Someone as experienced as Jay Leno had an incident where he left off the throttle while entering a turn and spun 5 times off the track without collision, thank God. However, Ben Chen, who has a moral history of crashing supercars, crashed a Porsche Carrera Mirage GT in New York. And don't even get me started about Paul Walker's crash, as I can even imagine being the most devastating. However, it wasn't Walker's fault, but his friend who was behind the wheel when he lost control crashed into a pole hard and the car engulfed into flames, killing him and Walker in California in 2013. The rest is history, as there have been many images of crashed Carrera GTs on social media. That's not to say that this is an unsafe car, but the Carrera GT is built for hardcore car purists who want to feel every twist of the steering wheel and the ASMR of each gear change and sound. The Carrera GT is a raw and uncompromising race car derived road car that almost didn't happen. That being said, it's an expensive car, while the Porsche GT price was $450,000 when new. Now, since its value increased over the years, you can expect anywhere from $800,000 and up in today's market. Nearly 20 years on, it's still one of the most desirable Porsches that have existed. When the car first came out, the Carrera GT became the #1 on the list of top sports cars of the 2000s and #8 on the top sports cars of all time list. For its advanced technology and development of its chassis, Popular Science magazine awarded as the Best of What's New award in 2003. The Carrera GT was a true all-around performer, setting a 7-minute and 28-second lap time record at the Nürburgring. Finally, let me break everything down for you about what makes the Carrera GT awesome. As first mentioned, the history went from F1, then to Le Mans, then to the road. The Carrera GT was primarily intended to become a race car. The race-derived V10 from the shelved F1 project gives a high musical sound note from the exhaust to the driver's ears closer to the Lexus LFA, which is the best part. A proper manual with a lightweight ceramic clutch makes the engine so responsive, and the motorsport heritage is obvious in its design. The Carrera GT is an attractive looking supercar and still timeless even today, and one of the best sounding cars in the world, hands down. Plus, referred to as the best analog supercar of all times, interpreted as a dangerous and crazy prospect yet highly rewarding supercar experience dedicated to skillful drivers. Another crucial milestone to remember for Porsche is that the Carrera GT was the first Porsche supercar unrelated to the 911 in terms of the mechanics, design, and history. For decades, Porsche had built 4, 6, 8, or even 12-cylinder engines up to this point, but there was no V10 in Porsche history, neither before nor after the Carrera GT. Therefore, the Carrera GT was the only Porsche to have a V10 power plant, which again makes it so unique, ultra rare, and sounds heavenly. The car was so good that it annihilated the Fantastic Four of Ferrari Enzo, the SLR McLaren, Pagani Zonda, and the Koenigsegg CCX, given that the Porsche distinguished itself as an era-defining supercar with no driving aids, as such as the lighting, but even more challenging. The Carrera GT was a hypercar that could have turned on you to remind you that you got too cocky and be guilty of being part of one of the most expensive supercar crashes in history. Yet, this supercar paved the way for the next successor, the Porsche 918 Spyder, which of course I'll make a video about it in the future. While the 918 catered to a new breed of billionaires with its high-tech, environmentally aware ideology, the Carrera GT was a raw, last breath of analog supercars with a high-revving V10 with this unique narrative that we suspect that there won't be a car ever made like this ever again. Deadass. So now that you understood about the Carrera GT, and if you think about buying it in reality because you have been dreaming of driving it for the longest time, then you know what to expect from this last Maverick supercar, and we shall salute the car for ending an era with the howling music of a V10 engine. And now that's a wrap for this video. So I hope you guys really did sit back and relax and enjoy this epic video of the Porsche Carrera GT review. And if you did, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the like button to see some more upcoming car review videos. And like I say every time, you are more than happy to give me any car suggestions in the comments down below of what to review in the future. Now I'm going to shut up and let you listen to the unforgettable V10 music. Peace out, stay safe, Chris the Radar out.